we have one of the best and well-known speaker. You will see him. He's called Mr. Climate, and I'm very sure a dear friend. I'm very sure he will do justice to today's subject. And so, on behalf of the team, we want to welcome you to this webinar, and I hand over to Joy, and we anticipate a smooth selling webinar today. Thank you. Over to you, Joy.
Thank you, Engineer Chidiebele. I'd like to take this forward by reading the bios of our guests. We have the President of the African University of Science and Technology, who will be giving the opening remarks before we go on to the presentation by Mr. Climate himself. Professor Azikiwe is on the board of directors of the African Technology Policy Studies Network, Nairobi, and the chairman of the Technical Board of Engineering Materials Development Institute, Akure. He's a member of the National Research Fund Committee of TED Fund 2019-2021 and president of Nigeria Academy of Engineering. He's a fellow of 12 professional bodies, including Polymer Institute of Nigeria, Agricultural Society of Nigeria, Material Science and Technology Society of Nigeria, Nigerian Societies of Engineers, Nigeria Academy of Engineering, Nigerian Institute of Management, and Nigerian Academy of Science. He's currently the acting president and vice chancellor of the African University of Science and Technology, Abuja. So I don't know if you're online. I'd like to invite you for your opening remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joy. Let me join the two speakers in welcoming every participant to this webinar under the auspices of Center for Climate Change of African University of Science and Technology. Incidentally, I'm speaking to you from Kigali. I came to Rwanda just yesterday for a very important meeting. I had to excuse myself from that meeting to address you because of the simple reason that I take the issue of climate change very seriously. The African University of Science and Technology, as you may well know, is a continent-wide initiative where we try to bring stakeholders from the research and scientific community. What we are trying to do is to build a community of scholars that deal with studying and finding solutions for Africa's problems. It is part of looking for solutions for those problems that actually took me to Kigali, where I'm interacting with a number of other African engineers on another platform. What the university tries to do is to bring scholars from all over the continent to be on our campus, physically or virtually in Abuja. What we try to do also is to make sure that everything we are doing is focused on solving problems, infrastructure problems, human problems of Africa. And we do this by majorly working on capacity building. This capacity building of young Africans at various levels. We started in 2007 as a postgraduate university under the Nelson Mandela Institute with a number of other universities, one in Burkina Faso, one in Arusha, Tanzania, in the network of Nelson Mandela institutions. So we started operations in 2007, awarding training people for MSc and PhDs. 10 years down the road, that was 2017, the university decided to expand. And so now we have not just MSc and PhD programs, but also undergraduate programs, which we're just at the 100 level now. Incidentally, we're still admitting students for the year. But beyond this undergraduate program, we now run a number of short courses, continuing professional development courses, where we try to bring down knowledge to the level of stakeholders. So if you're not interested in taking a degree, you can also come for a short training, 5 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and so on. The university has also started establishing a number of specialized centers. You may be aware that we host the Pan-African Materials Institute, which is one of Africa's Center of Excellence. And now we have the Center for Climate Change, which is hosting this today. But we have other centers which you can find on our website, a Center for Project-Based Learning, and so on. And under these centers, we even have researchers that are not really within the university system, but from all over Africa who join us, Africa and the diaspora. And the idea is to interrogate all these issues. So the university is currently embarking on expansion. That expansion sees us widening the scope of our postgraduate programs. For example, you will notice that in addition to the core science and engineering programs we're doing, we've now started programs in public policy and business-related studies in order to make sure that we can also train scientists, engineers, and others who can solve problems. So we welcome you to the university. In any way you want to be part of the system, we hope that you will find something that will be useful to you. And this is one in a series of seminars that will be running throughout the year, trying to bring to focus some relevant topics that may be useful to you in your workplace or wherever you are. But feel free to contact us, and these seminars are open. We can even invite you to be a speaker if you have an idea that can interest the public. Of course, beyond these free webinars, we also have specialized training programs where people pay to earn certificates at different levels, from those short courses to the long-term programs that's where you can get master's, PhD, bachelor's degrees, and so on. So it's been a wonderful event today. I'm really glad that you are all able to join us, and I hope and I believe that the speaker today will bring this topic to us in such a manner that we'll all understand it. Climate change is something that affects almost everything. I believe that we're going to get into a number of areas of research, and we are looking for partners. So those of you who are joining us today, if you want to partner with us, Engineer Chidebele is more than willing to work with you in different ways. So let me welcome you again to the university. And I invite you to visit our website so you can learn more about what we do. Thank you again, and join me in enjoying the speaker. Over to you, Joy.
Thank you, Prof. So to go into the next point on the agenda, let me quickly introduce the speaker by reading a bit of his bio. He's very well accomplished in this field. For us who are just climate change enthusiasts, he's like a sort of hero for us. So let me just read a bit of his bio. Olumide Edo, also known as Mr. Climate, is a Nigerian youth campaigner and climate change activist. He's the co-founder of the International Climate Change Development Initiative, Climate Wednesday, and Nigerian Youth Climate Coalition. Olumide was an Atlas Corps Fellow State International Visitor Leadership Program alumni, Social Media and Communications Officer for Association for the Development of Education in Africa, Triennial 2017 in Senegal, and the Senior Communication Director for African Youth Initiative on Climate Change, AYICC. He was the organizing committee member for 7th Global Platform on Disaster Risk Reduction in Mexico, African Youth Champion for the United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction, and received the 2015 Save the Children Award of contributing towards sustainable development in Nigeria. Olumide is the Youth Focal Point Nigeria UNDP Small Grant Program, Youth Lead Author for Global Environmental Outlook of the UN Environment and Executive Coordinator for African Youth Initiative on Climate Change. He's also a member of different local and international organizations. His core focus includes youth empowerment, environment, climate change, communication, monitoring and evaluation, and sustainable development issues. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation, Olumide, and you're welcome to take the stage.
Okay, Olumide is having a little issue to join in. That he will resolve that and join very soon. And
is he online?
Before he joins us, just
okay, please let's just give him a couple of minutes.
I should throw up a question that anybody can respond. We would like you to raise your hand. How can climate change knowledge become action? Olumide will join us soon. He has a little network problem.
I'm not sure I heard you very well. Can you repeat the question?
Okay, my question is, how can climate change knowledge become action? Become climate action? I know that we have a lot of people who are in that space here who are into climate change. So how can climate change knowledge become action? Raise your hand and I'll give you the floor.
Probably while we are waiting for that, for anybody to show, maybe Joy can tell us a little bit about what CC Hub is doing on campus and the program they have coming up.
Okay, yes. I'm very happy to talk about what we're doing on campus. In fact, one of the projects that CC Hub Corporation is working on is a UNIDO project where they are supporting startups that are doing work in the clean tech energy space, clean energy and clean tech space. So sort of, just promoting the green economy here in Nigeria, or particularly at the African University of Science and Technology. What CC Hub is doing is that we are operationalizing an innovation hub. The long-term goal of this is to foster this culture of innovation among higher, education institutions across Africa, and AUST is one of our installations currently. So we have worked in the past 6 months to operationalize the hub by providing different services. One of the things we've done is a pre-incubation program, because we're trying to get these academics to not only think like academics and researchers, but to also think in an entrepreneurial manner, to think that, okay, their research has real life application. And to do this, you have to sort of change the culture, change the way people perceive things. So that's what we've been doing so far. We're about to start the incubation program proper. With the incubation program, we're going to then select innovators, people who have done research, you know, in one field or the other. But I think the core at AUST is materials engineering, ICT. See people who have done research that has real life application. I mean, innovation is not a matter of having a big bang. It's about, you know, small incremental growth. So we want to see like your contribution to your field. How can we turn that into a minimum viable product? How can we take that and partner with big players in the field and provide that as a solution to them? Or how can we take this innovation you have and turn it into a proper company, support you to build your team, support you to patent your idea, your, you know, your work, support you to access even more funding. And at the end of the day, we'll also be providing the people who are able to successfully go through the program with some seed funding to enable them take their idea to the next stage, because this is the future of Africa. Actually, we need to get, you know, on that field. The field is not level playing for us. Africa is not contributing as much as she can to innovation, to growth, to economy on the global market and on the global stage, and we can actually do more than we're doing right now. So the long-term goal is that as we have started here, in the next few years, we're going to be seeing so much in terms of Africa's contribution to science and technology, commercializing science and technology, innovation from higher institutions. So yes, so that's what we're doing on campus at the moment.
Thank you, and I must acknowledge Africa Development Bank. It is with their support that we're able to bring innovators like CC Hub on campus to help us get this innovation hub going. Chidi, how are we doing? Are you in touch with the speaker?
Yes, he's there. So
is he ready?
Yes, yes. He's in the call, sir.
I mean, is he ready to start?
Yes, sir. He is. He's in the call.
Okay. Okay, so go on.
All right. So Idowu, Olumide, before you join, they've read your citations, and I think because of time, we would like you to proceed, sir. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very sorry. I don't know that my other panel session will go into 2 p.m. That is why I pleaded that I'm going to join very soon. But thank you so much for inviting me for this wonderful and great conversation today. I'm sure that we all know that this space, when we talk about climate change, is a space that everybody is trying to, you know, get his own side of opportunity on how we can build a future for all. So once again, my name is Olumide Idowu, and today, as the topic says, I will be speaking on climate change. I'll be speaking on climate change and climate change education for social transformation. So if I don't want to make it as a lecture, but I just want to speak to the topic itself. So as many of us know, that climate change is a conversation that I've been in the space for a couple of years now. And from my experience for a couple of years when it comes to climate change has taught me that climate change is everybody's concern. Climate change is everybody's conversation. And it's just in an education space, if we don't have a conducive environment, how do we want to assimilate, or how do we want to, gain more opportunity to say to ourselves that we are talking about, outcome of what we do. And if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, you see the 17 goals. All these 17 goals with the 169 targets also looks at the importance of education. And myself, I've been able to, go through these 169 targets, and I've been able to go through the 17 goals to see that we actually need to speak to, every aspect of the 17 goals when it comes to education development. And if you also look at how a lot of people are speaking or are talking about the climate change space, you also notice that we still have some people we call the deniers. And that is why it is very important for us as an individual to look at climate change conversation as a daily, day-to-day conversation. I'm happy to let you all know that the role of institutions, the role of education in our time is very important when it talks about climate change. Because I remember I got interest into climate conversation just because of some certain environmental issues I've seen in my environment. But we still have people up to today that see the climate conversation as a conversation that is not necessary now, which I think is a very big problem for us as a country, as Africa, and the entire world. And that is why the education part of climate change is important, both for the local people, for even people in the education sector. Everybody needs to understand that climate change is real. And if we don't take urgent action, my mentor always tell me that it's going to be like a time bomb. And when bomb explodes, nobody, as long as you're in that vicinity, you cannot escape it. So it is a conversation that is timely that we need to speak about. As I don't know if anybody on this call were able to, attend COP27 last year, you'll be able to understand that the word climate change is even a guiding conversation for all of us. We have the food security conversation in it. We have our energy transition conversation. We have the
I think because of my souvenirs, you didn't call me, so that I will not have your number.
No, it's not like that.
No,
It's not like that.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry, I had a network issue.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry, that was a network problem. So what I'm just trying to emphasize on is when it comes to climate education, we need to start looking at how can we localize this conversation? How can we streamline this conversation to young people in the local community? How can we start looking at climate change as a conversation that is in our day-to-day activities? And don't let us forget, the word climate change is just a guiding word. But how do we streamline it for me, you, and I to understand that the climate conversation cut across environment, cut across education itself, cut across food security, cut across energy, the diverse area that the climate space needs to look at. And in the context of a country like Nigeria, where we have fantastic policies, where we have all sorts of policies on ground, How do we make sure that this policy are being, exercised in a way whereby we, civil society, institutions, educational sectors, private sector, start using this policy to complement the implementation of what the government say they want to do? Even though the environment is not this way in achieving this, but how do we use our own immediate activities or our own offices to let people understand that there are urgent action that we need to take as we move on in the space of climate change? And climate change in Nigeria is real. You all see the things that happened to us during the flooding issue. And geopolitically, you see that in the Southwest, we are facing a lot of sea level rise. We are facing a lot of, a lot of sea level rise. When you come into the north part of the country, desert encroachment, desertification, that's why we're talking about a lot of tree plantings and well. You see from the south side, we're talking about gas flaring, we're talking about oil spillage, all these things. How many of us understand the technical part of this? How many of us understand how this area is affecting our environment? So it is very important that we need to speak to this and let everybody that is in the space or everybody that doesn't really believe in climate change to know that climate change is real. We had the rain in Lagos some days ago, I think 2 or 3 days ago. Everybody is saying, for the Yoruba people, they say it's a Agbalumon rain. Let me tell you, that is the kind of climate that is changing that we are seeing. I remember last year we couldn't have a lot of rain. Why is those things happening? We need to understand that nature is watching and speaking. You cannot cheat or you cannot take nature away from the biodiversity. Animals are being killed. Our natures have been taken away. How do we restore back? These are education that we need to let ourselves know. How many of us have taken a walk to some nature parks in Lagos? So it is very important that we see this space as an education space for us. A lot of people are talking a lot of big grammars. We should transit from fossil fuel to renewable energy. How do we even invest in those conversations of transition? What is energy transition? What is just transition? These are the things that we as an activist, as an advocate, as an educationist, need to let our community people in the space to understand that climate change is real. And if we want to transform the environment, we need to put measure, we need to put solution that can be, that can relate to community people. Because we are bringing a solution, we term it as technology transfer. How many communities understand technological transfer? We need to look at things that relate to people in the community that they can understand before we start talking about technological transfer. We need more of knowledge transfer to translate to people, for people to understand that technological transfer, energy transition is realistic. And most of the things our godfather or mothers are doing in the community, far communities, are also things that we can see is contributing to the success of the environment. I remember that a lot of people are talking about upcycling, recycling. Most of our elder people have been doing it years back. But when technology comes in, we started saying innovation. And when you want to create innovation and people don't understand the technology you are bringing to the environment, it tends to them that you are bringing a false solution. But those solutions are realistic until you make them to understand it. None of them will understand that this is not a false solution. And the false solution on the side of agriculture, when people talk about, agroecology, we need to start thinking about that as well. How do we eat, fresh food? How do we start talking about things that cause health problem to our system? So for me, or my fathers or my mothers on this call, it is high time for us to translate conversation of technological transfer, conversation of climate change into the environment so that people will be able to understand what they are going into for. I remember some weeks ago, I was also talking to some set of people about carbon credit, carbon, carbon emission. How many of us, even as some experts, how many of us understand carbon credit? How many? How many of us can even tell us how do we calculate our emission? So it is something that a lot of people don't know about. And people have made me to know that climate change is no more just a talk, it's now an investment opportunity. A lot of people are making money from technology transfer. A lot of people are making money from innovation. So how can we now start talking about innovations in climate change, innovation in food system, innovation in energy transition, innovation in solar panel? It is high time we start looking at those set of innovation so that we can build investment opportunity and our environment can be just, and we can start talking about what is the next step for us to scale up and make sure that our environment is conducive. Thank you so much. And I'm very happy to speak on this conversation, but I would just say that we need education to transform this environment space. We need knowledge transfer to make sure that our environment, people start taking responsibility in their local community without waiting for the government every time. I'm not saying government don't have much to do, but as an individually, we need to start looking at what is my role and responsibility in making the environment conducive. And by thinking that, then we are giving ourselves to learning and to understand the process of all this climate conversation, what happens in COP, what happens in preparation to COP, what happens in Bonn. All these things are education-related things that we need to put in place for people to understand it in the community. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. I would just like to thank you very much, Olumide. Just before Joy takes over for the question and answer section, I would love to say that we have, like I said, I started earlier in the opening speech. Climate change, biodiversity, pollution have become crisis for the world, and there is urgent need for response to this. In fact, the UN General Secretary has actually called this a battle for our lives. And if that is the case, it means that we all have to, we all have roles to play. And then when we talk about education, we know that we have formal education and informal education. So in informal, you can speak to people in your society and around it. But for this, when we are looking at the formal education, the role that it plays in social transformation, Olumide talked about innovation in the food system, in the transportation system, and all of that, that brings socioeconomic development. What we need is to equip ourselves if we must be part of this core. And the question has always been, the net zero target emission we have is by 2050. And today, where we are today, we are just few years to that. And the question is this still realistic to achieve that target net zero by 2050? And I know many of us will have a different answer, but my answer is I don't see that happening for many reasons. And just like Olumide rightly pointed out, we need to build capacity, especially in the global south, where we do not have most of those structures and the policy framework that drives some of these in our development. We need to build capacities, and that is one of the reasons why the center has come into a space to develop capacity building programs that with the university that will help people to key into this campaign and discussion. And at the last COP in Egypt, COP27, we saw that from my observation, particularly on the side of the Africans, that there is still gap in that in capacity building, in education, in understanding of what climate change is all about. And many people still do not believe that this is a reality. We're beginning to see floodings, we're beginning to see water scarcity, and even conflicts, and today we see the herdsmen migrating from the Sahara, the Mauritania, Niger, down to the corporate clashes, if you would like to address it that way. And people make it try to politicize that. It's simply because in the lands where they used to graze their cattle, they've all dried up. And so they need to move to where they have greener pastures to graze their cattle. And in this, of course, you expect to see some social vices. So what innovation can we bring to this? We have seen flooding, we have seen all of that. What innovation, and this is bringing increasing food insecurity, not just in Nigeria, in Africa. And of course, the issue of climate change, when it happens to any particular location, it happens it affects everybody. Most of us want to play in this space, in area of finance. And then you see people who say, okay, oh, there are a lot of money there. How gap, knowledge gap, you know, in doing all of that to be able to tap the funds that are available for some implementations for livelihood enhancement. It is important, and that's why we came up with this webinar, and to bring to our understanding that there's a need that we draw out this knowledge, this inherent knowledge, and develop it and become innovative in this fight to in this climate action. So I will just end there, just trying to follow up on the discussion session. We can discuss some other things. So I'll hand over to Joy for some question and answer for our guest speaker. And I have a question, but that will come later when everybody towards the end of the program. Thank you. Joy, over to you. Are you there?
Thank you, Engineer Chidebele. I don't know if anyone has been able to put their questions in the comments, or you could also raise your hand if you'd like to ask your question in person. In the chat box, has anybody been able to drop their question?
Okay, can I just make a little comment from what my other brother just said when it comes to the net zero thing. So you know, I will not say that net zero is the time for, but when you look at the net zero conversation in the context of Nigeria, we still have a long way to go. And bringing the net zero conversation in the conversation of climate change now is something that is very, very important. But presently, I see it as a forced conversation because we are still not ready to face, you know, the consequence that is going to come up when we talk about the net zero. And that's why you see that what is even net zero? What does net zero even mean for Nigeria? Have we asked ourselves that question? Have we been able to tell ourselves when it comes to some MDAs, what is the need for them? We have the transportation system, we have the agriculture, we have the Ministry of Environment, you know. So we need to start looking at the best way to approach the net zero conversation so that it will not look as if it is a forced net zero to us. Because by the time implementation strategy will start, how many of us are ready to face the consequences of what the impact and effect on us is going to be? So I'm also saying this based on the center. What kind of capacity building can we start looking at to make people to understand what does net zero mean for us? How do we take the word of the conversation of net zero to the grassroots for my own mother, your mother, our sister that are in the local communities to understand the context and the components of the net zero to us?
So it is a very big conversation so that we don't just jump onto any idea or any program they just bring to us from the, from the Western world. So we need to be careful about the word net zero. And this word net zero, what does it mean to Nigerians? What does it mean to farmers? It's very, very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Olumide. We have one question in the comments. Let me just quickly read it. I feel like it's even in line with what the comments you just made now. What are the best approaches to mitigate the mirage of climate change in Nigeria or Africa at large? Did you get that, Olumide?
No, it's interesting actually.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, Olumide, did you get that question? Or should I pass it on to Engineer Chidebele?
I think his network, I don't know if he's still in the call.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, he's here.
Yes, I just read the question. I think, like I said in my last comments, what the center is doing to bring capacity building, because the only problem we have when it comes to climate change mitigation is, there's a lot of technical conversation on that. There's a lot of technology when it comes to, are we even ready for mitigation strategy in Nigeria, even in Africa? Because when you look at adaptation, when we go to COP, we talk a lot about adaptation. Then when it comes to mitigation, then we are not talking about climate finance. Financing mitigation is much expensive. So how do we now start looking at the area of mitigation? What do we as people, how can we analyze the economic factor? How can we analyze the individual factor of our responsibility into the mitigation strategy? Because when you look at mitigation, it's everything from geopolitical to economy, and it's a broad area. You look at the election that is coming, how many of them have talked about mitigation, adaptation, on climate action, or their plans on climate change? It is very hard for us to see. How are they talk about shaping our cities, giving us a structure that is convenient for people, that can help us to even look at our life expectancy? Because mitigation is deep and is expensive for Nigeria. But if we put our mind and sort this issue out state by state, then we'll be talking about solution that is just. So I think that for me, it's very, very key. And the climate issue is something that we need to start talking about and put it at the front line, that is going to help us to improve our economy and our development. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I would just like to add that it is inevitably true that because the question talks about is referring to Nigeria and Africa, that Africa feel the brunt of the consequences of this global climate change. Let me use that global there. So we feel the brunt of the consequences of this climate change. But then, just following up on what Olumide said, we also have, when you talk about these mitigation issues, strategies, one of them, just to be very specific, is the CCS or CCS, carbon captures and storage, for example. In other parts of the world, that has been, they've gone far in Europe and America and Canada in the development of their CCS in terms of the legal and the policy frameworks. But in Nigeria, of course, we have zero legal and policy framework for carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration. And even in Africa as a whole, maybe South Africa and Egypt are there doing little, but the rest of Africa are not. And so this is just one. And Africa is also, if in the East, and in the south and in the west is bordered by the ocean. And then what are we also doing in the blue carbon strategy as a continent? How many of us as Africans have built capacity and have the capacity in those areas, in blue carbon or carbon captures or all other mitigation strategies that are out there? You see that is minimal. And the educational system we have is not addressing the problems because the research are not there, or maybe there are no funding, maybe there are no political government commitment to that, leadership commitment to that. So these are the reasons, these are the things. So in the area of leadership commitment, in the area of capacity building, we need all of that to mitigate, to be in the front lines of climate change mitigation in Africa or Nigeria, but also particularly to education and just like and for example, the Center for Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation Studies. And if you look at the name of the center, you will see that it's focusing also on adaptation and mitigation. So most of the research areas and the trainings that we, of course, after now, we'll see more of the trainings in the area of green buildings, in the area of carbon captures and all of that, food and all of that, that you will see food, water, energy, nexus, and what have you. So that are peculiar to Africa that we need for immediate adaptation and the long-term mitigations. So the center, of course, is developed some of those capacity building programs and trainings, and it will be launched full force. And I encourage many of us who are interested to also look out for when the adverts are up and then apply. Some of them will be free, some of them may not be free. And so we encourage you to be part of it. It's a holistic thing. We need to build capacity. And that's why what the university is doing. And we're also open to collaboration. It's not something African University of Science and Technology can do alone in Africa. There are also private individuals, investors, businesses, organizations, networks that will be willing to be part of this capacity building, educating the people, whether formally or informally. The center is also willing to collaborate, or rather open to collaborate with anybody. So I hope that answers the question, and I will step back for the other questions. Thank you. Over to you, Joy. Joy, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We have someone with a hand up, Dr. Dipanjana. If I got that correctly, asking you to
yes, you have spelled it very correctly. I am Dipanjana from India. I joined it because got the invitation, and first of all, thanks to all of you, because like all of you in Africa is trying to find out the solutions. In India, we are also struggling with the same challenges and same questions. One, I raised my hand to just share one information today that it is available in the Twitter, that today in Antarctica, one piece of ice sheet has melted, which is the size of London. Now, this is not to create any panic or to go to the cycle of depression, but this is definitely, this kind of events are impacting the ocean circulation to a great extent. And it's true that there are very good agencies all over the world who are watching over that. But it's what I believe that if something is happening in Indian coast, then the Indian scientist wing, the way they can monitor, or if something is happening in the coastline near to Africa with this kind of events, that will definitely going to we can delve it too much deeper. So since this discussion is on how to strengthen the climate change education, I will request you to kindly think of also that how the climate change, what are the impacts in your coastline? Because it's not only going to enrich Africa, it's going to enrich the entire world. That is just my suggestion. Thank you. I will
Thank you,
share
Doctor.
this. Yeah, I will also share this particular link within that particular group from where I got the invitation. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. We also have a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll just read this one. This one is much longer. So, from Michael Mosier, he's asking, from your experience, what strategies have been confirmed to influence people to act better towards the subject climate change? Let me repeat that. From your experience, what strategies have better towards the subject climate change? I think this would be a good question for Olumide. Is it awareness, government policies? Is it awareness or government policies? I guess that's what they're asking. Which of these actually affect people's response to climate change? The Europeans must have gotten something right to get people to act more responsible towards the subject. In summary, kindly recommend sustainable and practical solutions to get people intentional about climate change in Nigeria. So, over to you, Engineer Chidebele.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me quickly respond to that. Jumping on another coverage. So for the first question, hello?
We can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so let me just quickly say that the only way we can continue to drive this conversation and people to understand.
Can you hear me, Engineer? Over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Ido, go ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you. We can hear you, Ido. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So the only way we can continue to do this, the person says, is it awareness? Is it government policies? Government policies are there for us as a citizen to use to implement strategy. When you work according to policy, you'll be able to understand things that you need to do. For we are the receiving and as a community, the best thing we need to start doing is to see how can we translate the conversation of climate change to the local community, because these are the people at the receiving end. And the only strategy now is how can you and I take responsibility of every act towards the environment. It's very simple, because if we keep waiting for the government in some little or small things in our community to solve for us, then we will not go far, because these people are living far to where we are. Some of them are staying where it's conducive. But for people that are at the local level, we need to start taking responsibility of our own environment. And like I said, Nigeria, we have a lot of fantastic policies. Civil society organization can pick this point. And what the center is doing is one of the implementation strategies to help build capacity, to help build knowledge transfer. And I think that is the best and sustainable way to look at this. Education is key. Then the next person say, how can the CSOs and government come work together to close the gap? CSO and government have been working together for long. What I would just advise is that we should intensify our collaboration with the government so that the government can see what we are doing. Most of them are seeing it, but we need to continue to engage the government in our activities. I'm in an event presently of post-call, and I can see a lot of civil society that are doing fantastically well in disseminating climate information to the local community. But how do we carry along the local governments, the councillors, to understand the importance of climate action is also very important, and that can build a synergy between the CSOs and the government moving forward. So I think that will help us to actually translate our activities into action while waiting for the government to do their own part. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug, for that wonderful response. And I would also like to add that there is no particular, just like he said, strategy that all of them are very good. Talking about the policies, today in the North Sea is zero emission of CO2, but in the Niger Delta, not just, and all other West Africans, Equatorial Guinea, Angola, where we produce oil, we've been having flaring all these years. And there are no policies or no regulations. We have policies that are not implementable. And so, yes, that is where government have a role to play, policies they have to play. On the other side, awareness is also very important. And because people need to be aware, people need to be disciplined in the way or should be careful, or should be eco-friendly, let me use that word, in the way they go about their business activities, in the way they build their houses, in the way they manage energy, in the way they all of that, they transport themselves and all of that. So there need to be awareness, and they need to understand what they are contributing. I remember sometime I was traveling and I didn't know, when I got to my destination, I looked at my flight ticket and I realized that a certain amount of carbon footprint has been recorded for me, and probably I paid for it, perhaps as a carbon offset. And I never knew. So many of us, we do that, and we don't know that those things are out there. And then, so we need to build other awareness. We need to educate people. We need to, in area of agriculture, today we talk about climate smart agriculture. We need to engage those in the rural area, and teach them, educate them in a better way, an eco-friendly way to do all of this. I was discussing with a farmer in Europe, and he told me how he's managing the carbon captures and sequestration, where after his harvest, he doesn't allow the agro waste or the crop waste, to lie there and decay and emits methanes and all of that to the atmosphere. So he has to sequester them. So all these things are very important. We can have civil society organizations coming up to partner with the government. We can have institutions like our center, which is what we are planning. We already have a team that is looking at how we can use biochars and educate those in rural communities and using biochars for soil amendment. And of course, that also helps in carbon captures and also for serve as a fuel. So all these are things that we can do as institutions, as civil society organizations, as individuals, to help in this climate adaptation and mitigation campaign. And so I don't know if there are other questions, because the moderator is not on the call at the moment. The question says, how can the CSOs and government come?
No, I'm back on the call.
Okay, over to you. All right, thank you.
No, please go ahead. I'm back on the call, but please go ahead with the question.
Chidebe, please, you have to unmute. We can barely hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So I said this is part of what I was saying before for the CSOs and government, and I was trying to say that part of the issues we have in Africa generally is the issue of political will and lack of, will I say, lack of knowledge or capacity on the side of people who are in that leadership of power. But then the civil society organizations or the NGOs or the institutions, education institutions, or networks, they can design policies, implementable policies and sell to these nationals, the governments of nations, and drive it for implementation through the CSOs. So there can be partnerships, okay? So, but then is the issue of policy. So first of all, you've identified there's a need, and then that need, you have to design policies around it, because until those policies, some of them that need to be legislated are legislated, you cannot enforce it. For example, I talked about the issue of flaring. And of course, if there are no strong reaction or action towards that will push the government through the civil society organizations and interested parties to implement the policies around that, so we have no flaring, or we have other areas that are of importance that need to be attended to in order to help in this adaptation and mitigation solutions. So if we don't do that, if we don't have it legislated, it will be difficult to enforce. So that brings us to the point where we all need to get involved. And at the center, we're also open to collaborations in terms of policy design that are in any area in the climate space. And we also have a Department for Public Policy, which of course we can have collaborations in the university or elsewhere. We're open to collaboration with anybody, any institution, any organization. And once that is strong and is something that we can now sell to the government and then through civil society organizations and to the legislatures and all of that, you drive that. It's going to be a long thing. It sounds theoretical, but then it is realistic. It's something that if we commit to it, it will be done. So that is it. On the next question, we'll be waiting for the training or capacity building to support or improve our society. Yes, there are a lot of courses we are bringing out. Some of them we've already started, like the green building. Of course, you know that green building is one of the panaceas for climate change mitigations. And so that is already out there. But there are other ones in the area of food, in the area of carbon captures, the transitions, and then all of that. And then also even in finance and policy design. So you can also look up at our LinkedIn page. It will be shown on the chat box, the link. You can follow us on our LinkedIn page or Twitter for information when some of these courses are available. Like I said, some of them will be free and some of them will have to pay for. And also there are also programs for community development where we will engage in some capacity program for the people in the rural area. So we also will encourage you to look up for that and also join us in that. And that way you are contributing your own quota. The next question is, okay, somebody asked about slide. The presenter is on motion. We will share the slide. If you drop his slide, if you drop your emails. Okay, I've seen your email, that has been noted. Okay, I don't know if there is any other question. And then, okay, the LinkedIn page, and will be shared before the end of this program. So there's no other question. If there's another question, we can take. Go over to you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this conversation. It's very important that we have conversations like this. I do hope that everyone who has been a part of this would also sign up and register for the classes that are going to be following afterwards. I want to thank our guest speaker, Olumide Idowu, Mr. Climate himself. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank you for talking with us. Thank you for taking our questions. We look forward to further collaborations. For everyone who would like to receive the link to this recording, please don't forget to drop your email address in the thank the president, Professor Peter Azikiwe Onwualu, for this opportunity to set up a very important space such as this. Thank you, Engineer Chidi Ebele, for taking the lead on this. These are very important conversations. It can never be too much when it comes to climate. It can never be too much. We should do our bit and do as much as humanly possible to, save our environment, or not just saving our environment for the future, but existential thing concerning the future of Earth, concerning the present of Earth. We heard what the doctor spoke about earlier about an ice sheet the size of London melting. That is almost catastrophic if we're going to, we're not overselling it when we say things are pretty bad. Even here in Africa, where we think we're safe, things are pretty bad. So it's very important, these conversations. I thank you for your time. I hope that, in our subsequent classes, in our subsequent meetings, you'll be there. Please do well to invite other people. I mean, this can be your own way of really preaching that climate message, evangelizing, speaking to your friends, speaking to your colleagues. It's just, a couple of hours every week when we finally kick off. So it's not too much time to sacrifice to learn about climate change and your own part as an individual, in mitigating the crisis. So thank you so much for being a part of this call. Please, for you to find us, one of the surest ways to find us is through Instagram. If you find us on Instagram and send a message, or even leave a comment on the post, we'll follow up immediately. The Instagram link is on the chat box. So if you open the chat box, you see the link to the Instagram page, to the LinkedIn page. So you may have to scroll up a bit. But if you can't find the link I want to type, you want to search for Center for Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation. Center for Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation. You're going to see the African University of Science and Technology logo as a profile picture on that page, so that you know that that's the correct page, saying that you're from this particular meeting and you would like a follow-up email and the link to this recording. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this. I see somebody's hand is up. I don't know if they have spoken yet. John Kehinde Olawi, have you spoken yet? John Kehinde, have you made your contribution? Okay, so maybe he's not here right now. So I want to thank you all for being a part of this. If you haven't gone to the chat, please open the comment box right away. Open the chat box here on this call so that you can click that link. That'll take you to the LinkedIn page. Also, do not forget to drop your email addresses for follow-up. Thanks so much for being a part of this, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
And thanks for a great session. Bye.